There is a kind of anxiety that gets louder at the end of the year. Not because something bad is happening, but because everything seems to be happening at once. There are invitations, messages, expectations, questions about how the year went, about what changed, about what comes next. And for some people, this season doesn't feel like celebration. It feels like exposure. Exposure to noise, to people, to conversations that require energy we don't have. Exposure to an internal voice that starts comparing, reviewing, replaying. What did I do this year? Why am I still struggling with the same things? Why does it feel like everyone else moved forward but me? This video is not about holidays, and it's not about being ungrateful. It's about a very specific experience. The experience of social anxiety meeting the pressure of closure, of endings, of evaluation. For some of us, gatherings are not relaxing. They are performances. Smiling, explaining, answering, trying to look normal while everything inside is tense. If the end of the year feels heavier instead of lighter, if invitations feel more threatening than joyful, if you feel exhausted before the event even begins, this video was made for you. My name is Paulo. I'm Brazilian. I'm 42 years old. And this channel was created as a quiet place. A place to talk about experiences that are often invisible. Like social anxiety. Like feeling out of place. Like carrying thoughts that are hard to explain. I want to be very clear from the beginning. I'm not here as an expert. I'm not here to teach or diagnose anyone. I'm here as a person, sharing my own experience, my own perspective. Everything you hear in this channel comes from my life, from years of therapy, from reading, from observation, and from trying to understand myself better. I chose to do this channel in English for a simple reason: safety. Speaking in another language gives me distance, and distance gives me honesty. It allows me to speak more freely, without old labels, without expectations from people who already know me. Another reason is that these experiences are not local. They don't belong to one country or one culture. Social anxiety, emotional overload, and the feeling of not fitting in exist everywhere. English allows this conversation to reach people from different places who might recognize themselves in these words. This channel is meant to be calm, slow, respectful, a place where we don't rush to solutions, but try to understand what is happening inside. When I talk about social anxiety, I want to begin with a clear boundary. What I'm describing here is my personal experience. It doesn't represent everyone, and it doesn't define how anxiety works for other people. For me, social anxiety has never been only about fear. It's been much more about internal overload. I don't dislike people, and I don't lack interest in connection. What happens is that being around people, especially people I don't know well, demands a constant level of internal regulation. Before anything happens externally, my body reacts. My shoulders tense. My breathing becomes shallow. My attention narrows. I become highly aware of myself, how I'm standing, how I'm speaking, how I'm being perceived. This self-monitoring happens automatically, not because I choose it, but because my nervous system seems to stay alert. In group situations, this becomes even more intense. There are many voices, different rhythms, unspoken social rules. When to enter a conversation, when to stay quiet, when it's appropriate to react. For many people, these rules feel intuitive. For me, they require active processing. I think before speaking. I rehearse internally. I evaluate possible outcomes. And while I'm doing this, the conversation keeps moving. That gap creates tension. Another situation where social anxiety shows up strongly for me is around people I don't know well. New environments, unfamiliar faces, unclear expectations. Even when nothing negative is happening, my body behaves as if something needs to be carefully managed. Small talk becomes effort. Eye contact becomes intentional. Silence feels uncomfortable. Sometimes my mind freezes. This is not because there is nothing to say. It's because too many things are happening at the same time. Thoughts overlap. Possible interpretations appear. I replay what I just said, even before the moment is over. From the outside, this can look like distance, or lack of engagement, or emotional withdrawal, but internally, it feels like work. Continuous work. And the cost of this work doesn't always appear immediately. After social interactions, especially longer ones, I feel deeply drained. Not just physically tired, but mentally empty. I often need quiet, time alone, distance from stimulation. For a long time, I misunderstood this pattern. I believed it meant something was wrong with my personality, that I wasn't social enough, that I wasn't trying hard enough. Over time, I began to see something different. Social anxiety, for me, is not about avoiding people or situations. It's about navigating the world with a nervous system that remains activated for too long. It's about preparing internally for interactions that haven't even started yet. That constant preparation has a cost. It shapes how I plan my days, the choices I make, the energy I have available afterward. Understanding this didn't remove the anxiety, but it changed how I related to it. Instead of seeing it as failure, I began to see it as a signal, and that shift matters. As the end of the year approaches, social anxiety often changes its shape. It becomes less about isolated situations and more about accumulation. Invitations start to appear. Messages about gatherings, work events, social dinners, celebrations that are supposed to feel light and joyful. For many people, this time of year brings excitement. For me, it often brings pressure. Not pressure imposed by others directly, but pressure that forms internally. A sense that I should be more available, more social, more present. What makes this period particularly difficult is not Christmas itself. When I'm with close family, in familiar environments, with people who know me well, things usually feel manageable. There is history. There is context. There is less need to explain myself. The difficulty appears in other kinds of gatherings, end-of-year parties, confraternizations, events with people I know only superficially. Situations where there is an unspoken expectation to perform socially, to smile, to engage, to circulate, to make small talk with ease. In these spaces, my anxiety intensifies, not because something bad is happening, but because so much is expected at once. There is noise, movement, multiple conversations overlapping. My attention is pulled in many directions, and once again, my nervous system goes into monitoring mode. I start anticipating interactions before they happen. Who will I have to talk to? What should I say? How long should I stay? Even before the event begins, my energy is already being spent. Another layer that appears at the end of the year is comparison. People talk about achievements, plans, growth, what they accomplished during the year, and even when no one is judging, my mind starts measuring. Where am I compared to where I thought I would be? What changed? What stayed the same? This internal comparison can be exhausting. It turns gatherings into mirrors. And mirrors are not always kind. When we are already feeling vulnerable, sometimes just the idea of having to greet many people, to wish everyone a happy holiday, to repeat social rituals, feels overwhelming. Not because the gestures are wrong, but because repetition requires regulation. By the time the year is ending, my nervous system is already tired. So the pressure doesn't come from one event, but from many small demands stacking together. This is why the end of the year can feel heavy. For people with social anxiety, not because they dislike celebration, but because celebration often requires exposure. And exposure, when constant, has a cost. As the year comes to an end, something subtle often begins to happen. The world seems to slow down externally, but internally, many people speed up. There is a quiet invitation to look back, to review, to evaluate, to measure. Even when no one asks directly, the question appears: how was your year? For some people, this question feels neutral. For others, motivating. But for me, it often carries weight. Not because the year was objectively bad, and not because something dramatic happened, but because the act of looking back activates an internal system of comparison. I start scanning my own timeline. What did I expect from myself at the beginning of the year? What did I imagine would be different by now? Who did I think I would be? These questions don't arrive gently. They arrive automatically. And once they start, they tend to multiply. I compare where I am now to an internal version of myself that existed in my mind. Not a real person, but an imagined one. Someone more confident, more productive, more socially capable, more resolved. This comparison is rarely fair, because the imagined version doesn't carry exhaustion. It doesn't carry anxiety. It doesn't carry nervous system limits. But emotionally, that logic doesn't always matter. At the end of the year, time itself seems to demand meaning. There are dates, closures, transitions, calendars reset, goals are rewritten, promises are made. All of this creates the impression that something should have shifted, that progress should be visible, that change should be obvious. And when that visibility isn't there, pressure appears. Not always as panic, but as quiet self-criticism, a subtle sense of disappointment, a feeling of being behind. This is where internal pressure intensifies. I begin to replay moments, decisions I made, things I avoided, opportunities I didn't take. I question my own pace. Why am I still dealing with this? Why does this still feel hard? Why hasn't this improved yet? These thoughts don't come from nowhere. They are reinforced by the environment. Social media fills with summaries, achievements, before and after stories. People talk about growth, new phases, new versions of themselves. Even when I know these narratives are selective, they still affect me. They become reference points, and suddenly, my internal experience feels smaller, less valid, less impressive. This kind of comparison doesn't inspire. It compresses, it reduces a complex year into a simplified judgment. Success or failure, progress or stagnation. But human experience doesn't move in clean lines, especially when anxiety is involved. Living with anxiety often means that a lot of energy goes into regulation, staying balanced, staying functional, staying present. These efforts don't always produce visible results, but they are real. At the end of the year, that invisible work is easy to forget. Instead, attention goes to what didn't happen, what didn't change, what didn't improve fast enough. This is where self-pressure becomes heavy, not because expectations exist, but because they are internalized. They live inside, they repeat quietly. And the more tired the nervous system is, the louder they sound. I don't experience this as a dramatic collapse. It's more like erosion, a slow wearing down that happens through constant evaluation. By the time the year is ending, I'm not just tired from living the year, I'm tired from judging it. Understanding this pattern has been important for me, not to eliminate self-reflection, but to soften it, to recognize that the end of the year is not a verdict, it's not proof, it's not a final answer. It's just a moment in time, and moments don't define a whole life. As the year comes to an end, there is one thought that tends to return with particular strength. It's not always loud. It doesn't always arrive as a full sentence. Sometimes it's just a feeling, a pressure, a background noise. But when I slow down enough, I can usually hear it. I didn't change enough. This thought doesn't usually come from comparison with other people. At least, not directly. It comes from comparison with an internal expectation. An idea of who I believed I would be by now. How I imagined I would feel. What I thought would be different. This expectation is rarely realistic, but it feels convincing. At the end of the year, time itself seems to invite judgment. There are endings, closures, a sense that something is being finalized. And with that comes the idea that progress should be measurable, that change should be visible, that growth should have a clear shape. When that shape isn't obvious, the mind starts filling in the gaps. This is where rumination begins. I replay moments from the year, conversations, decisions, situations that didn't go the way I hoped. I revisit them not once, but repeatedly. What could I have said differently? What should I have done instead? Why did I react that way? These questions don't lead to solutions. They loop. They circle the same points. They return to the same conclusions. I should be further along. This shouldn't still be this hard. I thought I would be past this by now. Rumination has a particular quality. It feels active, like thinking, like reflection. But it doesn't move forward. It stays contained in the past, while pretending to prepare for the future. At the end of the year, this looping intensifies. There is less distraction, more silence, more moments alone with my thoughts. And silence doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it amplifies unresolved narratives. The mind begins to treat the year like a project that failed to meet expectations. I scan for evidence. Moments that confirm the belief that I didn't change enough, that I didn't grow enough, that I wasted time. Even neutral events start to feel like proof. And what's difficult is that this process doesn't feel optional. It happens automatically, almost mechanically. The nervous system is already tired, emotionally exposed, so the mind looks for explanations, and often, the explanation turns inward. This kind of self-criticism is rarely aggressive. It's subtle, persistent, quiet. It doesn't say you're a failure. It says, you should have done better. You should be different by now. Because it's quiet, it's easy to accept as truth. Over time, this thought becomes familiar. It appears at the end of each year, sometimes even before the year actually ends, and the more familiar it becomes, the less I question it. Rumination also has a physical cost. As I replay these thoughts, my body responds, my chest tightens, my breathing becomes shallow, my muscles stay tense. Even though nothing is happening in the present moment, my body reacts as if something needs to be resolved. This creates a sense of urgency without direction. I feel pressured to fix something, but I don't know exactly what, so the mind keeps reviewing. Another layer of this process is the idea of wasted time. At the end of the year, time feels finite. Another year has passed, another chapter is closing, and when anxiety is present, this can quickly turn into fear. Fear of falling behind. Fear of repeating the same patterns. Fear that nothing is really changing. The thought I didn't change enough is often followed by another one. What if I never do? This is where rumination becomes heavier. It stops being about the past year and starts projecting into the future. The mind creates a continuous line between who I was, who I am, and who I fear I might remain. And that imagined future feels suffocating. What's important for me to say here is that this process doesn't mean I lack insight. I know change doesn't happen evenly. I know growth isn't always visible. I know progress doesn't follow calendars. But knowing this intellectually doesn't always stop the emotional impact. Rumination operates on a different level. It's not looking for truth. It's looking for certainty. And certainty often takes the form of self-blame. At the end of the year, when external structure loosens, this internal structure tightens. Thoughts repeat. Judgments solidify. Flexibility disappears. I don't experience this as panic. I experience it as heaviness. A sense of carrying something unresolved into the next year. Understanding this pattern has helped me notice something important. The thought I didn't change enough is not a conclusion. It's a signal of exhaustion, of accumulated pressure, of a nervous system that hasn't fully rested. And recognizing it as a signal, rather than a verdict, changes how I respond to it. It doesn't make it disappear, but it creates a little space. And sometimes, space is enough to interrupt the loop. Before going any further, I want to clarify something important. What I'm about to explain is not a diagnosis. It's not a medical explanation, and it's not meant to replace professional care. It's a way of understanding what happens in the body and the mind. When anxiety and rumination become part of daily life, Many of the experiences I described earlier make much more sense when we stop seeing them as personality flaws and start seeing them as nervous system responses. The human nervous system evolved to protect us. Its primary job is not happiness, it's safety at any given moment. It's constantly scanning the environment for signals. Is this place safe? Is this person safe? Is this situation predictable? When the nervous system perceives safety, the body relaxes, attention opens, thinking becomes flexible. But when it perceives threat, even subtle threat, the body shifts, muscles tense, breathing changes, attention narrows. This response is automatic. It happens before conscious thought. In people who experience chronic anxiety, this system becomes more sensitive. It doesn't mean something is broken. It means the alarm system is finely tuned. The problem is not the alarm itself, it's how often it goes off. Social anxiety, in particular, is closely related to how the nervous system responds to uncertainty, unclear expectations, unfamiliar people, unwritten social rules. These situations require constant interpretation. For some nervous systems, that level of interpretation feels neutral. For others, it feels demanding. The brain begins to work harder, monitoring expressions, tone of voice, body language. This is why social situations can feel exhausting, even when nothing objectively bad happens. A lot of energy is being spent on regulation. Now, when this heightened state lasts for a long time, another process tends to appear. Rumination. Rumination is not the same as problem solving. Problem solving moves toward action. Rumination moves in circles. From a neurological perspective, rumination is often a sign that the nervous system has not returned to a baseline state. The body remains activated, even when the situation has ended. The mind keeps scanning for resolution. This is why rumination often happens at night, after events, or during periods of reduced external stimulation. The brain is still looking for safety. End-of-year periods intensify this process. There is less structure, more silence, more internal focus. At the same time, there are cultural signals everywhere, inviting evaluation, retrospectives, closures, new beginnings. The nervous system, already sensitive, interprets this as pressure. What does this say about me? Am I safe going forward? Am I falling behind? These are not philosophical questions. They are regulatory ones. The brain is trying to reduce uncertainty. Another important element here is the role of memory. When anxiety is present, the brain becomes biased toward threat-related memories. Moments of discomfort, embarrassment, or perceived failure are recalled more easily. This is not because positive moments didn't exist. It's because the brain prioritizes information that it believes might help avoid danger. At the end of the year, when memory scanning increases, this bias becomes more noticeable. The mind starts building a narrative based on selective recall. This narrative often sounds like, I didn't change enough. I'm still the same. I'm behind. But this narrative is not objective. It's filtered. Another layer that affects this process is internalized expectation. Many people grow up in environments where performance, improvement, and productivity are emphasized. Over time, external expectations become internal ones. The nervous system learns that rest is risky, that slowing down is dangerous, that value is conditional. At the end of the year, when evaluation becomes socially acceptable, this internal system activates strongly, even without external pressure. The body reacts as if judgment is imminent. For individuals on the autism spectrum, or with traits of neurodivergence, this process can be even more intense. Many autistic nervous systems are more sensitive to sensory input, social ambiguity, and unpredictability. This doesn't mean weakness, it means difference. But in a world designed for predictability, speed, and constant interaction, that difference carries a cost. More regulation is required. More energy is spent. Over time, this leads to fatigue. When fatigue accumulates, the nervous system loses flexibility. It becomes harder to shift out of alert mode, harder to rest, harder to feel done with a period of life. This is why the thought, "I didn't change enough," can feel so convincing. The body is still activated, so the mind assumes something is unfinished. Understanding this reframes the experience. It moves the focus away from moral judgment and toward physiological reality. It suggests that what feels like failure may actually be exhaustion, that what feels like stagnation may be a nervous system asking for safety, not pressure. This doesn't mean ignoring responsibility or avoiding growth. It means recognizing that growth doesn't happen in a body that feels constantly threatened. Regulation comes before reflection. Safety comes before evaluation. When the nervous system settles, thinking changes, perspective widens, self-compassion becomes possible. Rumination loses intensity. This is not a quick fix, and it's not linear. But it offers a different question. Instead of asking, "Why didn't I change enough?" we can begin asking, "What has my nervous system been carrying?" And that question opens space. Space for understanding. Space for rest. Space for a different relationship with time. After understanding what happens in the nervous system, something subtle can begin to shift. Not the anxiety itself, not the thoughts immediately, but the relationship we have with them. For a long time, I related to my anxiety and rumination as personal failures, as evidence that I wasn't doing enough, that I wasn't growing fast enough, that something about me was fundamentally wrong. Understanding the role of the nervous system didn't make those experiences disappear, but it gave them context, and context changes how weight is carried. Instead of seeing anxiety as an enemy, I started seeing it as a signal, a sign that my system was overloaded, that something felt unpredictable, that safety wasn't fully present. This doesn't mean giving anxiety control. It means listening before reacting. One of the most important shifts for me was moving away from forcing change and toward creating conditions for regulation. Instead of asking, "How do I fix this?" I began asking, "What helps my body settle?" Sometimes the answer is simple: quiet, familiar environments, predictability. Sometimes it's boundaries, leaving earlier, saying no, reducing exposure. And sometimes it's allowing rest, without turning it into another task to optimize. This way of relating doesn't produce dramatic transformations. It produces subtle ones, moments where the nervous system softens, where the internal pressure loosens, where rumination loses a bit of its grip. Another important part of this process is changing how I measure progress. For a long time, progress meant visible change, external milestones, clear improvement. But when anxiety is involved, progress often looks quieter. It looks like recovering faster after social situations, needing less time to reset, recognizing overload earlier. It looks like noticing rumination sooner and not following it as far. These shifts are easy to dismiss, but they matter. They represent regulation, not failure. As the year ends, this perspective becomes especially important. Instead of asking, "Did I change enough?" I try to ask, "What did I carry this year? What required effort? What demanded regulation? What didn't break me, even if it exhausted me?" This reframing doesn't erase disappointment, but it softens it. It acknowledges that surviving a year with a sensitive nervous system is not nothing, it's work. Another gentle shift is allowing uncertainty to exist. Not everything needs resolution before the year ends. Not every pattern needs closure. Not every question needs an answer right now. The nervous system relaxes when it senses permission. Permission to pause. Permission to not know. Permission to move slowly. This is not a passive stance. It's a protective one. It creates space for genuine change, instead of change driven by pressure. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in these experiences, I want to be clear about something. You're not behind, you're not broken, and you're not failing at life. You may simply be carrying more internally than others can see. And carrying has a cost. This channel exists to name that cost, to slow things down, to offer language where there was only pressure, not to provide answers. but to make the questions feel less lonely. As the year closes, my hope is not that you suddenly feel lighter. My hope is that you feel a little less alone in the weight you're carrying. Sometimes, that's enough to change how the next step feels. As we come to the end of this video, I want to slow things down one last time. Not to summarize, not to conclude anything definitively, but to leave space. If you listened to this and felt seen in any way, I want you to know that this space exists for you too. This channel is not about having answers, and it's not about reaching some ideal version of yourself. It's about creating room to speak honestly, without rushing, without performing, and without turning everything into a problem that needs fixing. If anxiety, social pressure, or the weight of time feels familiar to you, you don't have to carry that alone here. You don't need to agree with everything I say. You don't need to identify with every word. It's enough that something resonated. This channel is meant to be quiet, reflective, human. A place where thoughts can unfold slowly, without judgment. If you feel comfortable, you're welcome to stay. You can listen. You can return. You can take what's useful and leave what isn't. If you want to support this space, a simple gesture helps. Liking the video or subscribing signals that these conversations matter. And if you feel like sharing, you're welcome to leave a comment. Not to explain yourself, not to justify anything, just to exist here for a moment. In your own words. Thank you for being here, for listening, for taking the time. And whatever this season is bringing up for you, I hope you find moments of gentleness along the way.
The year feels heavy when it slows. Quiet questions start to show. Things I meant to change somehow still feel close to who I am now. Time keeps moving, soft and strange. Nothing shifts, yet something changed. Maybe I'm not late, maybe I'm not lost. Maybe I'm still walking, even when it feels like I've stopped. Rooms get louder near the end. Faces blur, I overthink. Every greeting feels too much. Every smile asks me to rush. I breathe in, I count the sound, trying just to stay around. Maybe I'm not late, maybe I'm not wrong. Maybe staying quiet is how I've stayed strong. I don't need a clearer road or a version I'm not close to. I just need a gentler way to carry what I couldn't say. Maybe I belong, even here unfinished, even moving slow. I'm still here. There might be enough. Ooh.